Have you ever felt like you're watching a game where everyone seems to know the rules except you? You move through the world observing people engage in behaviors that feel strangely artificial, following scripts you never received. That feeling of disconnect, that subtle yet persistent awareness that something isn't quite aligned is not a mistake or flaw in your perception. It is actually the first whisper of your soul attempting to communicate a profound truth about reality. Every day, I encounter sensitive souls who describe this exact sensation of being out of step with the world, like observers watching a play they never auditioned for. In quiet moments of reflection, they admit feeling as though they're wearing a costume that doesn't quite fit, speaking lines that don't resonate with their inner truth. This disconnect isn't accidental. It's actually the first sign that you are beginning to awaken to a different level of reality that most around you cannot yet perceive. The discomfort you feel is not evidence of something wrong with you, but rather confirmation that you are beginning to see beyond the veil of what we've collectively agreed to call reality. The world we navigate daily is indeed a game of sorts, but one with unspoken rules designed to keep consciousness contained and control within narrow parameters. Those who begin to awaken notice the artificiality of these constraints first as a vague discomfort, then as a clear recognition of the constructed nature of much of what we call normal. Think about your earliest memories of questioning the world around you. Perhaps as a child, you asked why things were done in certain ways only to receive answers that never quite satisfied your curiosity. Maybe you sense emotional undercurrents in your family that no one acknowledged, making you feel like you were perceiving something that wasn't supposed to exist. These moments weren't failures of understanding on your part, but actually early glimpses into a deeper reality. Just as a child constructs their understanding of the physical world through interaction and experience, your consciousness has been actively constructing its understanding of reality since birth. However, what makes awakened souls different is their ability to reconstruct their understanding when new information challenges old frameworks. This is precisely what happens during spiritual awakening. The reality you once accepted without question begins to reveal inconsistencies, and rather than ignoring these gaps in understanding, your mind begins a process of accommodating a new, expanded perspective. This process mirrors what developmental psychologists observe in cognitive growth, where existing mental structures either assimilate new information or accommodate by transforming themselves to incorporate experiences that don't fit previous models. The feeling of alienation that often accompanies awakening is a natural result of this process. As you begin to reconstruct your understanding of reality, you temporarily exist between worlds, no longer fully aligned with the consensus reality, but not yet firmly established in your new awareness. This liminal space can feel isolating, but is actually a necessary phase in your development. I want to ask you directly, when did you first notice that your perception of reality differed from those around you? Was it a sudden revelation or a gradual awareness that built over time? What specific moment stands out as a turning point when you realize you were seeing beneath the surface of things? If you feel called to share this pivotal moment, please write in the comments, "I awakened when," and describe that experience. Your story may be exactly what another soul needs to read to validate their own journey. Remember that in sharing, you're not only processing your own experience, but potentially illuminating the path for someone still finding their way through the darkness of their transformation. Each comment becomes a beacon that helps create a map of the sacred territory we're exploring together. The spiritual game of life operates on different principles than the material game most people are playing. While material game focuses on acquisition, competition, and external validation, the spiritual game centers on awareness, integration, and authentic expression. In the material game, the objective is to gain as much as possible before time runs out. In the spiritual game, The objective is to remember who you truly are before your physical experience concludes. This fundamental difference in perspective explains why awakened individuals often find themselves at odds with societal expectations and norms. You're not playing the same game, yet you're expected to follow rules designed for an entirely different purpose. The friction this creates is not evidence of failure, but rather confirmation that you are engaged in a more expansive game than those around you can currently recognize. What appears to others as disconnection, impracticality, or even rebellion is actually your soul's commitment to a different set of principles altogether. When we observe how consciousness develops, we see that it follows similar patterns to cognitive development. Just as a child moves from concrete thinking to abstract reasoning, spiritual consciousness evolves through distinct stages of awareness. In early stages of consciousness, reality is perceived primarily through sensory experience and immediate needs, much like an infant interacts with the world through touch, taste, and immediate emotional responses. As consciousness evolves, it begins to recognize symbolic meaning and develops a capacity for representational thinking, seeing beyond the literal to the meaningful. Eventually, higher consciousness achieves a capacity for integrated understanding, recognizing patterns and connections that transcend apparent separation. This progression isn't merely intellectual, but encompasses emotional and intuitive development as well. Each stage builds upon previous understanding, while transcending its limitations through a process of integration rather than rejection. The awakened soul doesn't discard earlier stages of development, but incorporates them into an expanded framework that honors the value and purpose of each phase of growth. Society is structured to maintain consciousness at predictable and manageable levels. Educational systems, media, cultural narratives, and even family dynamics often unconsciously work together to reinforce a limited perception of reality. This isn't necessarily the result of malicious intent, but rather a collective agreement to maintain stability through shared assumptions. The problem arises when these structures actively discourage the natural evolution of consciousness beyond conventional boundaries. Think of how children who ask too many questions or who perceive reality differently are often subtly or overtly discouraged from trusting their perceptions. Over time, most people learn to doubt their deeper intuitions and conform to expected modes of awareness. Yet for some souls, this conformity is impossible. Despite every external pressure, something within them continues to recognize dissonance between what they're told is real and what they directly experience. This capacity to maintain awareness despite contradiction is one of the hallmarks of an awakened soul. From the perspective of an awakened being, the behaviors and concerns that occupy most people's attention appear strangely mechanical and constrained. You might observe people pursuing goals without questioning their origin, repeating patterns that cause suffering without recognizing alternatives, or chasing fulfillment through avenues that consistently fail to provide lasting satisfaction. This observation isn't cause for judgment, but for compassion, as you recognize that each person is operating according to their current level of awareness. Just as you wouldn't expect a child to comprehend complex abstract concepts before developing the cognitive structures to support such understanding, awakened consciousness recognizes that spiritual awareness unfolds according to its own organic timing. Each soul is precisely where it needs to be in its unique developmental journey. This recognition allows you to interact with others from a place of acceptance rather than frustration, understanding that the limitations you perceive in others' awareness are not flaws, but simply different stages on the same path you're traveling. As your awareness expands, You may find yourself naturally withdrawing from certain relationships, environments, or activities that once seemed normal or even desirable. This withdrawal is a rejection, but a natural consequence of vibrational incongruence. Just as water and oil naturally separate without animosity, your energy system begins to resonate at frequencies that naturally align you with different experiences. This process of energetic sorting often creates the appearance of isolation as you find yourself between social worlds, no longer fully resonant with previous connections, but not yet firmly established in new communities that match your evolving awareness. This phase of the journey can be particularly challenging as it may appear from the outside, as if you're abandoning relationships or responsibilities. In reality, you're responding to an internal reorganization that necessitates external changes. This is not selfish withdrawal, but authentic alignment, allowing you to eventually return to engagement with the world from a more integrated and purposeful stance. While this period of apparent isolation may be challenging, it serves essential purposes in your development. First, it creates space for internal processes that require your full attention and energy. The reconstruction of your fundamental understanding of reality demands resources that would otherwise be depleted by maintaining connections that no longer serve your evolution. Second, this temporary withdrawal allows you to discover which aspects of your identity were authentically yours and which were constructed in response to others' expectations. In the silence that replaces social noise, you begin to hear your own inner voice with greater clarity. Finally, this phase allows for the integration of shadow aspects of self that may have been projected onto others or denied expression in previous relationship dynamics. The discomfort of isolation becomes a crucible for transformation, burning away what is not essential and revealing the core of your authentic being. Far from being a negative experience to be avoided, this period of solitude is actually a sacred incubation that prepares you for more genuine connection in the future. During this phase of withdrawal and reconstruction, intensive internal work takes place largely invisible to others. Your mental structures undergo a process similar to what happens during cognitive development when new information challenges existing frameworks. The mind attempts to assimilate new awareness into old structures until the discrepancy becomes too great, requiring a fundamental reorganization of understanding. This process isn't merely intellectual, but involves emotional, energetic, and even physical recalibration. You may experience unusual sensations in your body, emotional releases that seem disconnected from current circumstances, or intuitive insights that arrive without logical precedent. Dreams may become more vivid or symbolic. Meditation may produce profound states previously inaccessible, and synchronicities may increase as your consciousness aligns with subtler dimensions of reality. These experiences aren't anomalies or distractions, but integral aspects of your evolving perception. They represent your consciousness constructing new frameworks capable of holding expanded awareness, just as a child develops new cognitive structures to accommodate more complex understanding of their world. After this period of internal transformation, you eventually return to engagement with the world, but with a fundamentally different relationship to it. Rather than being unconsciously shaped by collective assumptions or reactive to external triggers, you bring conscious awareness to your interactions. This doesn't mean you no longer participate in ordinary life, but that you do so with the understanding that you are simultaneously engaged in a deeper game of spiritual unfoldment. You recognize that physical reality is a symbolic representation of consciousness rather than an objective, fixed environment. This awareness allows you to interact with circumstances as opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to happiness. You understand that relationships serve as mirrors reflecting aspects of yourself requiring integration, that challenges reveal beliefs needing examination, and that all experiences offer pathways to greater wholeness when approached with presence. This perspective transforms your relationship with reality from passive recipient to conscious co-creator, recognizing that your awareness itself is a creative force shaping your experience. Some might interpret this process of awakening and withdrawal as spiritual bypassing or escapism, a means of avoiding responsibility or uncomfortable emotions. Nothing could be further from the truth. Authentic awakening doesn't avoid emotional processing, but intensifies it, bringing to consciousness all that has been suppressed or denied. It doesn't reject responsibility, but expands beyond conventional understanding, recognizing that your primary responsibility is to embody your unique expression of consciousness as fully as possible. This isn't selfish, but essential to the evolution of collective awareness, as each awakened soul creates resonance that facilitates others' awakening. The caterpillar might appear to be abandoning its responsibilities when it enters the chrysalis, becoming temporarily unavailable to its normal ecosystem. Yet, without this period of radical transformation, the emergence of the butterfly with its entirely new relationship to the environment would be impossible. The apparent withdrawal serves a greater engagement that cannot be recognized from the perspective of caterpillar consciousness. This understanding brings both humility and empowerment, recognizing that while your current awareness is limited, your essential nature is boundless. As we conclude this exploration, remember that awakening isn't something you achieve, but something you allow. The game of life unfolds perfectly according to the precise requirements of your soul's evolution. Every experience, whether judged as positive or negative by conventional standards, serves the expansion of your consciousness when approached with presence and willingness. The rules of the spiritual game aren't imposed from outside, but emerge within as you align more fully with your authentic nature. The discomfort you may feel in relation to the world isn't evidence of failure or maladjustment, but confirmation that you are sensing the limitations of consensus reality and reaching beyond them toward more expansive possibilities. Trust this process. Honor your unique path. And know that while awakening may sometimes feel isolating, you are never truly alone. Countless souls across time and space have navigated the same territory, and many walk alongside you now, visible and invisible, supporting your journey toward remembrance of who you truly are beyond all limited identities and definitions. The game continues. The awakening unfolds. And your participation matters more than you can possibly imagine from your current perspective.